Good afternoon, friends. I hope you are fine and you are taking care of yourself in these difficult times. Hopefully, these times will fade away soon and we may see a happy sunrise of happy times. Before going to the discussion of the text Abhijnana Shakuntala, I would just like to recommend a book for you to read. Recently, I completed reading a book entitled Murane Kivi by Ravindra Bhatt. In that book, there are explanations about the efforts taken by parents to teach and to educate their son who is deaf and mute by birth. Life for us may be very simple and we may not find many challenges in our life, but life for differently abled children is very challenging. Their learning, their education at every level is a hindrance for them. In all these circumstances, how to teach a deaf child to speak is a big challenge. And in that particular book, Ravindra Bhatt has narrated about the experiences that he faced as a father of a deaf and mute child, filled with all lessons about life, explanations about the methods of teaching this son how to speak, how to utter words. This book is a mesmerizing book and it becomes an inspiration for all the readers who know Kannada should read this book. It is a motivational story because we see the growth of a deaf and mute child from a simply crying child to a very good spokesperson, a very good drama enthusiast student. And we see at the end that the child who was unable to speak is now able to perform in the dramas. So it's very interesting account of the challenges faced by the parents, the trouble taken by a mother for her son. So I recommend you read this book, which is a very small book. You can read it, finish it even in 1 or 2 days, but I suggest that you must read this book. It's very inspiring and we will learn a lot of things from this book. We will know how to face challenges strongly, boldly. We will also learn how to stand strong in our life in spite of the difficulties that we face. So, Murane Kivi, remember the title. So now let us come to our discussion on the drama that we had started recently, Abhijnana Shakuntala. In my last class, I have given you some details regarding drama, its contents, and how it is a composite art. And then I also discussed about the concept of hero in Indian classical tradition of drama, as per the dramaturgy written by Bharata Muni, that is Natya Shastra. And then I also discussed a few points, not discussed literally, but I revised a few points of romanticism, because this play is basically a romantic play, a love story. And we also saw the other aspects of romanticism like love for nature, description of nature, and then supernaturalism, and then the simplicity of the characters, and so on. So now today we would like to move further. I would like to move further with the next discussion about the drama. Before going to the text of the drama, I would just like to speak about the greatest poet of India, that is Kalidasa. As usual, I will not be telling all the biographical details which are available on the websites and all, but I would just like to say a few things of admiration about Kalidasa. As we all know, the old poets were not behind money or success. So in most of the plays written by the earlier poets and dramatists like Bhasa, and even to some extent even Shakespeare and Kalidasa in India, they did not leave their mark. I mean, they did not tell about their personality more in the directly in their writings. So it is very difficult to trace out the time period in which they lived. Especially Indian classical poets like Bhasa, Bharavi, Kalidasa, all these poets and writers chose to hide about themselves. They gave more stress on their work, on their output. So it is difficult to say some things very clearly about Kalidasa's living time when he lived. So estimates predict that the scholars have studied the characters of his drama and his dramatic style and made estimations that he might have lived anywhere between 1st century to 5th century AD. Some say that he was one among the Navaratnas in the kingdom of Raja Bhoja. And then there are some other mythical stories related to Kalidasa. Some say that he was blessed by goddess Saraswati, who wrote Omkara on his tongue, because of which he became a great poet. And then there is another story related to Kalidasa. Kalidasa had run to meet his wife, and then the wife says, you go and instead of running behind me, you go and meet some god and devote yourself to the god's service, then you will get some brains. And then he goes to the temple wherein the god blesses him, and then he becomes a poet and comes back to his wife and says this line, Asti Kaschit, replies to her question, Asti Kaschit Vag Visheshaha. Then with all those 4 words, he composes his great works. So there are lots of stories related to Kalidasa. We can't take any story to be exactly authentic. And then there is another story that Kalidasa was a shepherd. So there are a lot of mythical tales, constructed tales about Kalidasa, because he did not reveal his identity completely in his works. And that is a greatness of poets like Kalidasa, who gave more importance to their work rather than their identity. And as we all know, he is called as Kavi Kula Guru. He is called as Kavi Ratna. In fact, there is a movie. There is a film in Canada, Kavi Ratna Kalidasa. It's very popular. You might have watched that movie. So, what makes him such a great writer in Indian Sanskrit tradition? Of course, it is his quality of work. For example, the drama Abhijnana Shakuntala, or the poem, the great poem Kumara Sambhava. These are one of the most excellent creations in Sanskrit literature. He has written 2 of the 5 Mahakavyas or epics in Sanskrit. We have to forget the traditional epics here. Here we have to consider literary epics that were produced in Sanskrit. Out of 5, 2 of them are credited to Kalidasa, that is Raghuvamsha and Kumara Sambhava. And then he is famous for his dramas. 3 dramas written by him became excellently famous: Malavikagni and then Vikramorvashiya, and the very play that we are studying here, Abhijnana Shakuntala. And most of his stories were based from the Vedas, the Puranas, and the epics Ramayana and Mahabharata. He has written cantos, we call them Khanda Kavyas, which are in parts, Meghaduta, and the other one is Rutu Samhara. So we can see the linguistic talent of Kalidasa in all of his works. But not just linguistic excellence, we also find that Kalidasa is a real scholar. He had knowledge of many other fields, like for example, geography. if you study the poem Meghaduta, it is in two parts, Purva Megha and Uttara Megha. That is a love poem actually. Viraha, that is Yaksha, is there and he is separated from his wife because of curse, and then how he sends his messages through the cloud. In English it is translated as the cloud messenger, Meghaduta. It is an imaginary poem, but when the poet describes the geographical landscape of India as seen from above, it is astonishing to find that whatever descriptions that Kalidasa has given about the landscape of India, the central India, the rivers in the central India, the forests and the mountains from central India to North India, we get astonished because whatever he has described is actually there in India's geography as it is seen from above. Now, we may get a question, how could Kalidasa in those times when there were no planes, no aeroplanes, no drone cameras, no satellites to capture Google Maps, in those times, how could Kalidasa have such a profound knowledge of India's geography? Whether he had traveled so much or whether he had achieved that knowledge with a lot of patience and penance, so that remains a mystery. But whatever it is, we have to appreciate his knowledge, especially the geographical knowledge about India in as represented in Meghaduta. And then another poem, Khandakavya, is Rutu Samhara, in which he describes the beauty of nature in all the 6 seasons. And here also we get to see that Kalidasa had the deep insight to look into the subtle aspects of nature. So basically he was not just a romantic poet who wrote love stories, but he was also a nature poet who was deeply involved with the nature and the surroundings of his place, that is India. In fact, a lot of scientists, a lot of researchers who read Sanskrit literature, a lot of even researchers from Western countries who read the works of Shakespeare came and they studied the aerial view of India, and to their surprise they could find lots of similarities in the description and in the aerial view of India's topography. So this is simply mesmerizing, astonishing. Kalidasa was such a great scholar. And he has influenced a lot of poets in the future days. Lots of Indian poets who came after Kalidasa imbibed many great aspects from Kalidasa's poetry. Many of the romantic poets considered Kalidasa as their ideal, and then even he influenced European writers. According to Dale Carnegie, it is written here, father of modern medicine, Sir William Osler always kept on his desk a poem written by Kalidasa. So that is why we call him a classic writer. See, when we say classic, a classic is not restricted to only one country. Now Kalidasa wrote in India, Kalidasa wrote in Sanskrit, but the matter which he wrote is of world standard, world class. That is why you see even this man, father of modern medicine, Sir William Osler, always kept on his desk a poem written by Kalidasa. So this man might be living somewhere in the Western countries, in European countries, but he kept a poem written by Kalidasa on his desk. Such is the legacy of Kalidasa. So people like Kalidasa, poets like Kalidasa become world figures. They are not just restricted to India, and his writings have been translated, reinterpreted, rewritten with some modifications in not just one language but in many languages across the world. and that makes Kalidasa an immortal poet of all the times. So I will just like to read some lines about, not lines, I would like to read some achievements of Kalidasa even in the modern times. So many scholars have written commentaries on the works of Kalidasa, and then there were some foreign writers who claimed Kalidasa to be the greatest poet of the world. Kalidasa's Abhijnana Shakuntalam was one of the first works of Indian literature to become known in Europe. It was first translated into English and then from English to German, where it was received with wonder and fascination by a group of eminent poets, which included Herder and Goethe. See, we see these poets as the greatest poets of Europe, Herder and Goethe, the poets from Germany. They also looked at Kalidasa with great reverence for his classical way of writing the works. And a lot of films were based on Kalidasa, even in the modern times. Kannada films, Mahakavi Kalidasa, and then Kaviratna Kalidasa, we all know that movie, which was very famous. Even in Tamil versions, there were movies based on Kalidasa. The Hindi play Ashad Ka Ek Din, written by Mohan Rakesh, takes the fictional account of Kalidasa's life as the base of the story of the drama. That this is how Kalidasa becomes a Kavi Ratna. He is the diamond of among all the poets of the world. He is not restricted to just one region. This is how he becomes the greatest writer across the globe, renowned by appreciated by greater poets in India, in Europe, in America, and at many places across the world. So this is the grand legacy of a grand poet of the stature of Kalidasa. So in my next lecture, I will be speaking about the storyline of the play. I will be also discussing how the original story differs from the story that is taken or adapted in the drama. What additions have been made in the drama by Kalidasa to the original story that was derived from Mahabharata. So according to the we will discuss about these differences, about these unique features of plot line in our next class. Thank you very much for watching this video.